Today on the Working Cows podcast, I'm sharing with you a talk that Joel Salatin gave at the Rogue Food Conference, where he read a chapter from his forthcoming book, Food Emancipation.
America's food and farm system is enslaved by a labyrinth of regulatory licenses, consolidation, concentration, and centralization within big food and big ag dominate food choice and consistently drive down farm gate value. Nobody wins except executives at big industrial chemical-loving corporations. Food emancipation, allowing blanket food transaction choice between voluntary consenting adults without the government's permission, would unleash thousands of farm entrepreneurs on our neighborhoods. For the first time in decades, small farm entrepreneurs could birth business babies.
He spends a good majority of the talk talking about how we can move forward in sync with nature's design.
Consolidation, centralization, and concentration. Nature scales with duplication. If nature wants more oak trees, it doesn't make a great big oak tree, it makes little acorns. If nature wants more milk, it doesn't make a great big cow. If nature wants more tomatoes, it doesn't make a great big tomato plant the size of a football stadium. It makes a bunch of tomatoes plants, okay? Nature scales with duplication.
All that and more on this episode 507 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Remedy Animal Solutions.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast. Very excited to share with you today, as I said, a talk that Joel Salatin gave at the Rogue Food Conference in Rapid City in February of this year. And he started out by reading a chapter from his new book, Food Emancipation, which will be out later on this summer. And then he also shared a bunch of insights about how we got to where we're at and a way forward. So it was a great talk. Really glad that they were willing to let me share it with you all. So you can hear it. All of the talks from the Rogue Food Conference are up at Working Cows, the Working Cows Patreon, patreon.com/Working Cows. So if you want the rest of the talks, I think there's 11 or 12 sessions that were recorded there. They're all up there for you to listen to at your leisure. $10 a month gets you access to all 250 plus bonus episodes, the whole back catalog of which 11 or 12 of them, I think, are recordings from the Rogue Food Conference, and they're fairly recent in the catalog, so you can go find those. And speaking of Rogue Food, August 13th, 14th, and 15th of this year, they will be hosting a Rogue Food Conference at Polyface Farms. Of course, John Moody, Joel Salatin will be there. Also, Dr. Eric Berg. If you've ever watched anything on health on YouTube, you probably come across Dr. Eric Berg's videos. He's going to be there, as well as former NFL football player and Super Bowl champ Hunter Smith. He's going to be there. He's a Super Bowl champ turned farmer, and obviously he's run up against the bureaucrats, and he's going to talk about his experience with that. So Max Kane will be there as well. Stephen Renfrano, so many others. So great opportunity. If you want to attend it, you can go for 4 days of real food, Polyface meals included with the ticket purchase. Great opportunity. You can go to roguefoodconference.com, use code COWS30 to get $30 off your ticket. Now, Joel Salatin's talk at the Rogue Food Conference in Rapid City.
So I've debated a lot about what to bring you guys this morning, and so I've got kind of a combination of things here to share with you. And the first thing I'll share is that I have just literally last week finished my 18th book, which is Food Emancipation: Unshackling America's Sustenance. And this has been a lifetime coming. if you know my book, Everything I Want to Do is Illegal, we've had our battles over the years. Some we've lost, some we've won, and some we choose not to engage in because they're just so rough. And so anyway, there is a shaking in the land right now, folks. The Maha movement, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. It's real, and we are seeing a new interest. Sunday night Super Bowl, there's going to be a Maha sponsored ad featuring Mike Tyson, the heavyweight fighter, who is going to be talking about eating real food. It's a 30-second ad. I just saw it this morning. And it's powerful. It's very, very powerful. So there is some real interest, I think, in the country like we've never seen before. But I'll tie that up in a moment. So I want to start by just reading, if you don't mind, the introduction to this new book. Is everybody okay with that? It's just 900 words. It's not real long, but this is the way the book introduces. It should be out by August 1. We're about 2 weeks ahead of schedule right now, so we're excited about that. All right. America's food and farm system is enslaved by a labyrinth of regulatory licenses to prohibit buyers and sellers from exercising food choice. Young, enterprising, next-generation farmers desperately need a profitable on-ramp to enter agriculture as a viable vocation. Food buyers need less expensive, high-quality food options purchased directly from farmers. Convenience food now dominates the American foodscape, but farmers can't access this massive market without multiple permits and capital-intensive, scaled, prejudicial infrastructures. Consolidation, concentration, and centralization within big food and big ag dominate food choice and consistently drive down farm gate value. Nobody wins except executives at big industrial chemical-loving corporations. Nobody conspired to make this happen. It was not a war on farmers and authentic integrity food. The American people let it happen and unfortunately wanted it to happen. We citizens enslaved our food system through the policies we asked our legislators to pass. Local food and small farmer advocates, by and large, miss the food enslavement issue. Grants to build more federal inspected abattoirs, for example, do not offer viable market access to livestock farmers because these facilities are inherently scaled prejudicial. If making a legal for sale chicken pot pie for a neighbor requires a $500,000 in licensing and buildings, the economics only work at large scale. In many areas, zoning laws prohibit commercial enterprises in agriculture zones. Food segregation is in overdrive. Consumers are denied food choice, and farmers are denied retail convenience food markups. Food emancipation, allowing blanket food transaction choice between voluntary consenting adults without the government's permission, would unleash thousands of farm entrepreneurs on our neighborhoods. For the first time in decades, small farm entrepreneurs could birth business babies small enough to be viable. Nothing could offer as much opportunity and viable business development as Uberizing our food system with an underground railroad to allow folks who want to escape the shackles to do so. This idea does not require a single taxpayer dollar, no government agency, and no regulation. All it requires is largely to return the direct marketing part of our food system to what existed prior to 1967. If I have a friend who makes a first-class summer sausage, by what authority does the government come between the two of us in transacting a food sale? In this book, I look at every argument against this freedom and debunk it. When the government gets between my lips and my throat, I call that an invasion of privacy. Regulating food like this is not about safety. It's not about risk. It's not about liability. It is about controlling market access regardless of what anybody says. The explosion of more affordable and higher quality food options that would follow a food freedom policy would revolutionize America's foodscape. It would chip away at the food oligarchy and maybe even eliminate it. It would give farmers access to lucrative, value-added convenience food dollars. And it would give consumers a plethora of food options rather than simply a choice of label colors coming out of one processing plant. More marketplace diversity offers additional stability, security, and safety within the food system. For too long, the only option to ensure food safety and competition most people see is additional government oversight, grants, and antitrust litigation. We haven't tried freedom for a long time. Few things unleash innovation in a society like liberty. The more experimentation, the better. But government marketplace intervention despises experimentation. Bureaucracy is always rigid and uncreative, stuck in the status quo. For the sake of our next generation farmers, our next generation children who deserve food without 10,000 government-approved artificial chemical additives, and for the sake of our security, we need one option outside regulatory control. One option, free to experiment, to listen to consumers, to care about earthworms and human health rather than stockholder dividends. Many people can't imagine businesses who care about more than money. I assure you that thousands of farmers, especially small farmers, care about more than money, but suffocating regulations make money a bigger consideration than it needs to be. Freed up to build relationships with their customers, farmers and their patrons could enjoy a symbiotic business relationship unheard of in modern industrial times. Food emancipation is one additional thread in the Make America Healthy Again tapestry. Informed consent, religious exemption, an honest food pyramid, reduced glyphosate, and a host of other issues are parallel objectives in the food freedom movement. Ultimately, food emancipation is about trust. The COVID debacle dropped the scales from many Americans' eyes. Realize that the same philosophy that pontificated mRNA jabs, masking, school closures, 6-foot distancing, and nursing home deaths by loneliness runs other agencies of government, including the USDA. In COVID's aftermath, many people realized their misplaced trust ruined their lives. Misplaced trust in USDA, Big Food, and Big Ag has allowed our nation to lose its freedoms and food options. The time to claw back food choice is now. The time to take the shackles off our sustenance is now. This book is a treatise to inform you about this issue, to enthuse you about the possibilities, and to bring millions into a salvific mentality toward new farmers and food buyers who want choice. Anybody want to get that book? I hope so. There's a lot of excitement about it, and I've been able to present this to. So the only one left on my list to present, I've had time with RFK Jr., Callie Means, a lot of influential people. So I'm bucking right now to get a 30-minute pitch time with Trump to present the idea of a food emancipation proclamation to him, and to issue a food emancipation proclamation. I can't think of anything more Trumpian than a food emancipation proclamation. And so I have people in pretty powerful places. I've never been in this position before to have this level of relationship. And there are people working behind the scenes to make that happen. We'll see if it does. If God wants it, it will. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But people ask, well, is that legal? I don't think he cares. I think if he thinks it's really right, he'll do it. Now, I don't agree with everything Trump's done by a long shot, but I do think that he moves by an individual moral compass, not just a political expediency. So that's where we are.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Remedy Animal Solutions. Are you plagued with respiratory infections, pink eye, too many open cattle, lice, high vet and drug bills? Let Remedy Animal Solutions help you transition to a drug and vax-free system with their protocols. Prevention is way better than medicating. Let them show you how to be more effective, spend less, and do less work doctoring using their effective formulas sprayed on salt for prevention or intranasally for treatment, never needing a drug or needle. Consumer demand for clean meat is high. Remedy Animal Solutions can give you customized advice by calling them to get your concerns and challenges resolved. Their natural and organically qualified products have no holdback time or culls when treated. For listeners of the Working Cows podcast, you can get $200 off your complete first aid kit for quick treatment options on the spot. Consider listening to both of our previous episodes with Ellen Bench of Remedy Animal Solutions on the Working Cows podcast to get more information about how to integrate these options into your operation.
So, January 19, Teresa and I are at the MAHA presidential inaugural ball in Washington, D.C. There are, over the weekend, there are 31, 30, 28, something like that, inaugural balls. Trump didn't come to this one. He picked his three and he went to his three, and the rest of us, had to do with underlings. And, but anyway, a wealthy doctor friend, who's very instrumental in the MAHA movement, and said, "Hey, I'd like you to come," and he paid for everything, and that's great. And we'd said, "Well, we've never been to a ball before. That's not our cup of tea, but once in a lifetime would be kind of cool." So we got, I got the tux and got all dressed up and gussied up and went up there and went to at the Waldorf Astoria, the ball. Okay, so so I want you to realize that. So you go in, of course, security is crazy, crazy, crazy. And you finally get in there to this big room, and there's 50 tables of 10. So if you know math, how many people is that? 500 people. All right. Each table is full. There's 50 tables of 10, round tables of 10 in the thing. And during the evening, numerous luminaries got up and gave a little, a 3-minute teaser thing, rah, rah, cheer, move the troops. And of course, you can imagine the level of the energy here, at the MAHA inaugural ball. It was a pretty, rowdy bunch. And the epiphany for me was when Del Bigtree, who handled RFK Jr.'s publicity while he was running for president, has now launched the MAHA podcast and is the founder and mover of the High Wire podcast. Some of you maybe are familiar with. He got up and he said, "How many of you are here who have vaccine injured children?" And I couldn't count all the hands, but a cursory look at it, certainly 1/3 of the hands went up. 150 at least of the 500 people who were there. And the release of the emotional floodgate in that moment. I've told this story a million times. I still get chill bumps every time I talk about it. I'll never forget this moment. To me, that was an epiphany of what the MAHA movement is all about. Here were all these parents. They had, those of you who've had babies, a lot of us have had babies. You bring this precious little thing back, or if you had it in a home, that's fine, or in the barn, I don't care. But anyway, you get this little bundle of baby, and you can't help the flood of emotional fantasy going through your head. When are they going to walk? When are they going to talk? When are they going to go to school? What's their first romance going to be? What's their first job going to be? Get married. Where are they going to go to college? If they want, are they going to go to voc school? What are they going to? What's their interest going to be? and of course, grandkids. Okay. I mean, it doesn't take you long as a new, am I the only one that thinks this way? No, we all have those aspirations for our little bundle of joy, even when they're a day old, right? Okay. And so here were all of these parents who had that level of emotional dreams and aspirations for this little bundle of joy. And everything was good for, a month, 2 months, whatever. And somewhere along the line, 1, 2, 3 years old, in this bundle of vaccinations, suddenly they're a little responsive. And here was this room full of parents who had 16, 17, 18-year-old children still in diapers, unresponsive, who all of these dreams and these aspirations that they'd had suddenly turned into a life of dependency. I hope I can live longer than you to take care of you. Doctor's visits, therapist visits, frustrations, friends, and the overall health federal structure, community medical structure says, oh, it's all in your head. It's all in your imagination. It's all, it's something you did, blah, 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 whatever. And they have been kicked aside, marginalized, and talked down to, and suddenly in this moment, in this wave of understanding and newfound clout, they have a champion, RFK Jr. Now, this isn't here a publicity speech for RFK Jr. I don't agree with everything he's done either, but I'm telling you, I'm trying to relate to you. For me, the palpable, to help you appreciate the power, the profound power. The Maha movement is real. And COVID helped it along, because the scales fell off of thousands and, millions of people's eyes. And suddenly the trust in government institutions, in Tyson, in Cargill, into Chicago Board of Trade, in WHO, in the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. I mean, you just go, right? The trust cratered. The trust cratered. And that is what has kept the power. Bernie Sanders running around, gotta stop the oligarchy, Bernie Sanders. Well, he's right. He's right. We do have an oligarchy. But the way to stop it is not with a bigger government agency to bully the big players. We've tried that for 150 years. And what's it gotten us? It's gotten us 4 companies that control 85% of the beef market.
Remedy Animal Solutions is our sponsor today, and I recently had a chance to catch up with Kathleen Sabatka, and she shared about her lengthy experience with Remedy Animal Solutions.
I'm very positive about Remedy's Animal Solutions. We've been using them now for over 18 years, and I've had really good results. One year, we had our cattle all together in the winter, and in the spring, we separated them into 5 groups, took them to 5 different pastures. And we had been telling Ellen, a handful of things that we weren't happy about with them. It wasn't anything major, but it was problems we didn't like to have. Previously in our experience, we had done some vaccinations that always made things worse. So we had stopped doing that, but still our animals just didn't look as healthy as they should have been. So she took some of her original formulations, and we gave each one of those 5 groups. One got no remedies. One of the groups got her Pro Vitality, which is like a cell salts for animals, where it's made from minerals, and it helps them to utilize the minerals and vitamins in their food. Then we did other things. We had 2 or 3 different combinations that we did, which I've totally forgotten now. But a month later, she came out and we went around to the 5 different pastures, and we definitely saw changes in the ones that were getting remedies. The flies were left, much less flies. And then some of the other things we were noticing, like the coats were shinier, they'd shed off better. Different physical things we were looking at had all improved on the ones with the remedies. Then she started to formulate what has turned into Remedy Animal Solutions with these really convenient combos that makes it way easier for us to use homeopathic remedies with our livestock and with our pets.
If you want more information, you can check out remedyanimalsolutions.com.
You know, people in 1906, when Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle, and the 7 big packers who at that time controlled 50%, the 7 packers, Swift, Armour, you know, all these, controlled 50% of America's meat market. This was considered, monopolistic. Imagine that, 7 controlling 50% of America's meat supply. Now, you can say, whatever you want to about Upton Sinclair. I mean, the guy was a communist and whatever, but he was really writing about worker abuse in the Chicago slaughterhouses. But what got people was not worker abuse, it was the filth. And what people don't realize is that within 6 months of The Jungle coming out, being printed and coming out to the populace, those 7 companies lost 50% of their market. Americans went back to their local butchers, which at that time there were a lot of them. Our county had 25 little, butchers that worked at that time. Today, we don't have one. In our county, you cannot grow a steer and sell a T-bone from that steer without exporting it from the county and re-importing it, because we have no federal inspected slaughterhouse. Fortunately, we have one in adjoining county 30 miles away, but I run into people all the time that have to go 200 miles, 300 miles to get an animal done. And so those 7 companies in 1906, after they lost their market, they were facing bankruptcy. And they went to Teddy Roosevelt, who, of course, I call him Teddy Rooseveltsky because he was really a communist. And they went to him and begged him, we need something to give us credibility with the American consumer. We've completely lost it. We're not making any sales. Well, he should have said, you made your bed, now go lie in it, guys. I'm a free marketer. I believe in, market. This, you're seeing what an informed populace does. When people have information, they actually make good decisions. People are not stupid. No, he said, I'll give you a federal agency. And so he gave them the Federal Safety Inspection Service, FSIS, in 1908. And the whole and then of course, the big packers were aligned with the consumer advocacy groups. Ralph Nader hadn't been born yet, but it was the precursors of Ralph Nader. And so through this industrialization of agriculture and food, security fences went up, razor wire went up, guard towers went up, the companies got bigger and bigger, and the food system became opaque through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Opaque. What happens when a major economic sector in a culture becomes opaque? First of all, people become ignorant about whatever's happening behind the fence. And what does ignorant breed? Ignorant breeds fear. We fear what we don't know. What's going on there behind that fence? What's going on behind there? And so so there was a revamp of the FSIS codes, in the late 1940s. Then the 1967 one was the huge one, Wholesome Foods Act. And then, of course, there was the Food Modernization Act under Obama. Every single time there has been a consumer-friendly additional regulatory oversight to look over the fence, within 24 months of every one of those 4 major changes over the last century, within 24 months, half of the slaughterhouse capacity in the country went out of business. because the new regulations became too strenuous for small outfits. All of the regulations are size prejudicial, all of them, which is inherently unjust and unfair. Well, what the consumer advocates were asking was government oversight to look over the fence and make sure that our interests are protected. What they got were bedfellows, and they all went to bed together. And that's what's happened today and created the oligarchy. Okay, so the oligarchy that we have was a direct result of market intervention and scaled prejudicial regulatory structure from the government. Oversight. Teresa and I co-own a small federal inspected slaughterhouse, the one that we use. We bought it out of desperation. The owners, turned 80, didn't have a succession plan. We're going to lose it. And so we got with a couple other people and bought it, and back 15 years ago. And it costs us $700 to do what Tyson, JBS, American National, the big Cargill, it costs us $700 to do what it cost them $150 to do, because we're squeezing 50 beef a week through a regulatory structure that is identical to them squeezing through 5,000 a day. The big Tyson plant that is getting closed in Lexington, Kansas, I think. 5,000 head per day. Just think about what 5,000 beef per day is. Think of how many guts that is, how much blood that is, how many heads that is, how many hides that is. And since there's no hide tanning in the U.S., some of you are old enough to remember when the hide value paid for the actual killing of the animal in the slaughterhouse. Today, all those hides go to the landfill because there's no market for them, because nothing is done in America. It's all shipped to China, and these great big packers can fill a container load in a few hours of hides, put it right on a ship, send it to China, and places like us that takes a month to accumulate enough hides to get a guy to come and pick them up, salt them and lay them out. So there's no value there. And so they're just thrown away, wasted. And so this is where we are right now. And I think it's important, as I finish here, I think it's important to appreciate it. John, how much time do I have? How much time do I have? 10 minutes? Okay. All right, good. So where we are right now is we have a confluence of several things. Number one, America's average farmer is now 60 years old. 60 years old. Okay. If you read business books, they will tell you that in any cultural economic sector, when the average practitioner in that sector is more than 35, that is a sector in decline. So do we all agree, if young people can't get in, old people can't get out? All right. And so we need on-ramps for young people. What's the fastest way for young people to get in? Or what attracts young people? You'd like to say a life of drudgery and dust and smell. No. What attracts young people is you're not interested in making becoming a millionaire, but you don't want to be poor as a church mouse either. Okay. So there's got to be an economic way. Well, what's happened in the last 100 years is that the farm gate share of the retail dollar has dropped from roughly 50% in 1940 to today, depending on what database you look at, somewhere between 8 and 15%. In other words, the convenience food, and think of what we're learning out of Maha. And I didn't come here to just extol the virtues of Maha, but I'm telling you, it's a major deal. What we've learned in the last year is, how many of us knew that there were 10,000 artificial food additives in America's food compared to the EU's 400. That's now common knowledge. Everybody knows this. How many of us knew that SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, food stamps, almost $15 billion a year go to Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper? How many of us knew that? Okay. And so I'm very grateful for the uncovering that's going on. All right. And we're only a year in. Okay. We got 3 more years if, we don't have impeachment and everything else. So it's an exciting thing. The point I'm making is that I have lived all my life telling, I do, urban foodie conferences and stuff. And people ask from the urban sector, all right, I live in the city. What can I do? I said, my first thing is always get in your kitchen. Get whole foods, get a butternut squash, get a whole chicken. You don't need a boneless, skinless breast. I mean, I can remember when you couldn't go to the grocery store and get a boneless, skinless breast. If you want a boneless, skinless breast, you went and bought a chicken, you took it home, took a knife, one of those things, and a cutting board, and you cut the breast out and you had boneless, skinless breast. Today, half of our customers don't even know a chicken has bones, flops around, like you go out to the boneless breast tree, and pick it like apples and pears. And what has happened now, this year, I have made a complete about face and strategy. I'm not telling people to get in their kitchens anymore, because what's happened is we have become so disconnected as a culture from our kitchens, from domestic culinary arts, that now when I suggest, I watch people, I watch reactions when I do presentations, and I watch people now. 20 years ago when I said, get in your kitchen, yeah, we can do that. Now I say it and people they're offended. That's how far removed we are from food. So the on-ramp for young farmers, and especially small farmers, is to access the convenience food market. Quit selling chickens and make pot pie. So we supply a restaurant in town with chicken. They make pot pie. Chicken pot pie is wonderful. It's their signature dish. We send them thousands and thousands of customers. And it comes in a little cast iron skillet with a handle on it, it's just wonderful. They buy a $20 chicken from us, and they turn that chicken into $405. Now, if we drop that back to $200, say that's the value add of the chicken, because they've got labor and utilities and stuff in it, all right? In other words, they take that $20 chicken and ramp it up to $200 value. So you've got a 2-acre homestead. You've seen the handwriting on the wall. You say, man, oh man, if the wheels fall off, I don't want to be stuck in the city. A lot of people are seeing that. So we have an exodus. We have an exodus in our country right now. I mean, half of Tennessee is now California refugees. And the price of small acreage land has tripled since COVID. In 2021, at our farm, we had a steady cavalcade of RVs, rental RVs, See America, these, and we're from Michigan, New York, California, and we don't know where we're going to end up, but we're traveling the country. We're taking a month off, and we're going to land somewhere. I mean, I've never seen it. It was a real cultural phenomenon, and so here we are with this a $20 to $200 chicken. All right. So let's say you've got small acres, you've got 2 acres, okay? At our pastured poultry rate, we can raise 600 birds on an acre. In other words, if you take every day's move and you add it all up, over the 5 weeks they're out on the pasture, it comes out to 600 birds on an acre. Well, you got 2 acres, you can raise 1,200 birds. 1,200 birds times $20 is $24,000, okay? What if you could sell pot pies? 1,200 birds times $200 is $240,000. Okay. Suddenly you've got a living. You got a full-time living on your 2-acre homestead. Okay. People are buying those pot pies. They've got monosodium glutamate in it, glycerin, red dye 29, but you don't have to put that in a pot pie to make a decent pot pie. You can make it, you can freeze it, put it in a little cardboard thing and stick it in, the UPS delivery and go. And so the convergence that we have right now in our culture, we have aging farmers. We desperately need an on-ramp for young farmers that comes through profitability. We have the convenience food. 75% of everything Americans eat right now, 75% is convenience food. That means it was cooked, prepared, and packaged somewhere else. 25% of what Americans eat is eaten in their cars. This is where the money is. Okay? This is where the money is. And so what I'm getting at is that the farm and eating, because I buy stuff too, but the grower and the eater are segregated by these food regulations that prohibit the two from enjoying a consensual relationship. Okay? By what authority can two of us as consenting adults exercising freedom of choice engage in giving our microbiome agency? Does that relationship require a bureaucrat's permission? Are you with me? This is so simple. It's so simple. And so I'm done complaining about Monsanto, complaining about glyphosate, complaining about cloud seeding. I don't like any of that stuff, all right? But instead of blowing all my emotional frustration and energy off in being a negative about what I don't like, let's come together and build a freedom-based, relationally oriented, freedom of choice, voluntary, mutually beneficial option, an underground railroad to escape the segregated system that we have and create an integrated option for people, both farmers and friends of farmers, who want to engage in direct food choice and provenance. To me, that is a positive. That is a positive a thing that we can get behind that's all positive, and it's not just blowing against all the negative. And so we have now doorstep shipping. We started shipping nationwide in 2019, July 4th, 2019. We started nationwide shipping. We worked on it for 2 years before we finally launched. And in 2020, when we lost $1 million in restaurant sales because they all closed, because in spring of 2020, if you didn't have a drive-up window, you were out of business in the restaurant business. And we didn't service restaurants that had outdoor, drive-up windows. We sit down. And being able to ship nationwide saved our bacon, and we sold 6 months worth of inventory in 6 weeks as the supermarkets went down. Question: does anybody believe we would have had a worse hiccup from 2020 if instead of the nation being served by 300 mega processing facilities, meat, canneries, food service, whatever, instead was serviced by 300,000 community scale, locally cycled canneries, processors, convenience food makers? Would we have had less of a hiccup? It's a rhetorical question. The obvious answer is, of course, we'd have had less of a hiccup. Because when you're in rough waters and disturbed waters and rocky shoals, you don't want to be in an aircraft carrier. You want to be in a speedboat. Okay? So you can navigate everything. And finally, people, as soon as I start down this, the naysayers say, well, that's all sound well and good, but how does it scale? Let me tell you something. Nature does not scale with consolidation, centralization, and concentration. Nature scales with duplication. If nature wants more oak trees, it doesn't make a great big oak tree. It makes little acorns, and little oak trees come up. If nature wants more milk, It doesn't make a great big cow. It makes calves. All right? If nature wants more tomatoes, it doesn't make a great big tomato plant the size of a football stadium. It makes a bunch of tomatoes plants, okay? Nature scales with duplication. And if we look at the potential of land in the U.S., 35 million acres of lawn, 36 million acres housing and feeding recreational horses, 71 million acres. That's enough to feed the whole country without a single farm. Our weak link is not resources. It's not money. It's not domestic market. I mean, we're now importing 20% of our food in the U.S. We've never done that before. I mean, our imports exceed our exports. Why don't we release our domestic production to our domestic consumption instead of doing $12 billion and $10 billion bailouts to oversupply the world with soybeans and corn to export while our own people have to import food from elsewhere? And so we can, as those of us, especially, you multiply, thousands and thousands of small entrepreneurs into the food system, suddenly you completely change the face of the food system from a centralized, consolidated, concentrated system to one that is duplicative. And that's the way nature scales. And so we all have basically a community speedboat to run around in, instead of communities being dependent on a great big aircraft carrier from far away, hope it can get here. And so from a stability, safety, security, food standpoint, there's nothing that beats a duplicative kind of system in which people have the freedom to engage with each other in their own provenance. That is the goal of Rogue Food. I hope you'll enjoy drinking out of a Liberty fire hose for the next day. And I just can't tell you how much we appreciate you being here. What an honor it is to be here and meet with all of you all. And I hope that you'll come and visit us in Virginia in the summer when you want to warm up. Thank you all so much. It's so great to visit with you. Blessings on you. Thank you.
Very good stuff there. Really, again, hat tip to Joel and John for letting me share that with you out from behind the paywall at patreon.com/workingcows, where you can get all of the talks from the Rogue Food Conference, as well as the entire back catalog of bonus episodes. Like I said, over 250 of those up there now. Some of them whole talks like this from conferences that I've attended. Some of them are just bonus content related to the subject that we were talking about on the episode. Some of them are total left turns. Like I've asked John Moody theological questions on there. He's got a master's from a seminary, a master's degree from a seminary. So we've talked theology with John at different times, and just it can be anything. So if you're interested in that, patreon.com/workingcows. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, I'm going to share with you a conversation that I had with Mark Walter and Trey Schmidt, and they were talking about a product where they're taking a waste product from the sugarcane manufacturing process, the sugarcane processing process, maybe is a better way to say it, and turning it into a supplement that is good for livestock and also people. So interesting conversation, and we'll be sharing that with you coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.